I always considered myself to have a kind of addictive personality, and I don't know exactly what that means in terms of upbringing and nature, nurture, all that sort of stuff. But I know what the experience of it is like, and I'm very aware of it, much more than I have been my whole life. And I tend to experience any artificial stimulation and then have this sense of wanting to do it more. And I have looked into the dopamine function a fair bit, and dopamine is always trying to find homeostasis. So if it motivates you to do something and you do that thing that benefits your survival, then dopamine is going to go back into homeostasis, but it actually always goes back the opposite a little more than it went positive. You feel good, you feel a little bit worse than you felt good. This is that sense of wanting more. Look at some TikToks, you stop doing it suddenly, you want to keep doing it. That want to keep doing it is the negative experience of dopamine. You feel uncomfortable, you may feel a little bit of uneasiness in the stomach, whatever it is, and you will then be urged to do more of it. And this makes sense. Survival. The issue is that there's a limit to the amount of carbs that we could find when we evolved. There wasn't anything such as porn that existed. There were no video games. There were drugs, but they were things like mushrooms, right? And these types of drugs don't really have that standard addictive quality like morphine or whatever, and most others. Caffeine. So this dopamine mechanism and this addictive quality wasn't really much of a problem. It just drove people to do things. And what I've learned is that I'm very aware of when the mechanism is activated, and it's always when it's something that's been artificially manipulated. So I eat a piece of cheese and I want more. The thing with cheese is, I'm not saying it's unhealthy. I believe cheese is healthy in terms of what's in it. But in terms of the way it can activate our addictive processes, because cheese is artificial. We process milk to make it. It is a mixture of carbs and fat, which is something that's actually very difficult to find in nature. We mix these two, and you have something that triggers the body in such a way that is unnatural or unusual. So the dopamine effect is more. If you eat a steak until you're completely full, there is no addictive quality to it. This doesn't exist with carbs because in the quantities that we can eat, carbs never used to exist. We can just eat and eat and eat, and eventually we can be so full that we feel sick, save with pasta or pizza, but even then, we will still eat ice cream. These are all unnatural things, right? Fruit is an argument because fruit has been manipulated over the centuries. I believe the fruit that's the closest to what originally we had are berries. But apples, bananas, everything, they apparently in their natural form, back in their original form, you wouldn't have eaten them. Or it'd be very difficult to eat enough of them to really get much from it, right? Except for basic sustenance. This is why fruit isn't designed to sustain us. Meat and fat is. We are made for that. This isn't saying fruit doesn't give us beneficial things. It's just saying the fruit we have today is not natural, most of it. So we can eat a lot of it it is closer to nature than, and there is sort of a mechanism that does kick in and we don't want anymore. But at that point, it's way more than we would normally have been able to eat. So if we eat carbs in these quantities, our insulin, our dopamine, everything is triggered in an unnatural way, and then the addictive cycle begins. There's also a psychological element. So when you experience that, there is an association made in the body between a large amount of food and that mechanism. So then when you get hungry, you will get a craving to eat a large amount of food, hence binge eating disorders. Hence. So really it comes down to, if you do something addictively, then you should not do it at all. Or it has to be non-addictively or not at all. If anything makes you feel like you want more, and a strong feeling of more, then it needs to never be done. Because it's always going to eventually get out of control.